Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2021 Week 6 Waiver Wire Pickup Power Rankings. The full injury report, running back snap shares, early spreads, Monday Night Football, and the new segment, email advice, life advice, that would be, not fantasy football advice. You want to send a question to myself, you do that at the Pat Mayo Experience at gmail.com. We got some good ones already lined up, so thank you for throwing your questions into the ring to do this. Remember to smash the like button to the episode, and we're on the push for 30,000 subs on YouTube, so please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Mayo Media Network. We got the Monday Night Football preview already up. The recap from Laquan is already up. So we got a ton of stuff to do here. If you want to run the best sims in the game, get your optimal lineups for Monday Night Football. You can run it 10,000 times in less than 10 seconds at runthesims.com. And runthesims.com/Mayo will get you a discount. My waiver wire pickup rankings in list form will be available on dknation.com. I have submitted them already, so I don't know when they're going to be published. I would think by the end of this show. When they're published, I will add them down into the description, so you can want to follow along with the show and see the rankings. They'll be updated too if any information changes. Plus, if you're looking for the full injury list, the snap shares, game notes, anything like that, subscribe to the Mayo Media newsletter. I have the link down in the description right now, just the link to the blog where you can see all the updates for that if you want to know more about how many shares of snaps that running backs played this week. Chris Meaney is back. Happy Thanksgiving, my Canadian friend.
Yes, that's right. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, dude. Always a pleasure to be here and doing this on a Monday morning instead of a Sunday night. So I'm refreshed. I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to rock. It was some entertaining football last night.
Yeah, unless you're really a big fan of people making extra points, week 6 or week 5 was pretty good. I had my best betting week. I had my best DraftKings week. It's one of those weeks where everything that could have went right for me outside of Daniel Jones getting hurt and John Ross not getting that touchdown in the Dallas game, although it wasn't a touchdown. I really could have used him to score the touchdown. So like once every 5 weeks, it's like bad week, tread water, really good week. And now I'm like all fired up to start betting again. I know I'm just going to get taken this week.
Yeah, it's usually how it goes, but you never know. You can put together a couple solid weeks here in a row. I think from a fantasy standpoint, it was awful for me yesterday. I just didn't have things go my way, and I wish I had more Chargers in my life. I did have them on the spread, but from an overall, man, dude, I lost a lot of money yesterday on Saquon, and I just had like little props, and I kind of touched him everywhere. I had him in a parlay with just over 13 carries. Had him in another one over 90 total yards, another one over 59 rushing yards that I had earlier on in the week. And just to see that, what I call it a freak injury, really. I know Saquon's had some injuries over the course of his career, but that one was just like one that really pissed me off yesterday. Hopefully he's all right, but man, I lost a lot of money on that because I had the Trey Lance over 7 rushing attempts at plus money, and that happened in, I think, first quarter.
Yeah, when you're going to rush the ball 20 times a game, eventually it's going to be pretty good for you if you're Trey Lance. They're on bye this week, though. We finally have bye weeks. Atlanta, New Orleans, San Francisco, and the Jets all on bye. Plus, we have Jacksonville and Miami and London this week for another early one. I love the early game. Not that, I'm super into how good the quality of football was because they sent the absolute nutlow teams over to London to go play. I just like having football on when I wake up because the time zone that we're in sucks for watching sports. Good for recording content about sports. Sucks for watching sports because we're even ahead of Eastern. But I just like something I like going to the gym on Sunday morning, and now I can watch football when I'm there. It's fantastic.
I thought it was awesome. Yeah, it was great. And you're right. We're as far east as you can go. So that game didn't happen until 10:30, which is great. I mean, to wake up. I used to live on the West Coast when that game was happening at 6:30, at 5:30 in the morning. Still good because you wake up and maybe you just missed the first quarter or so. But I was thinking about that yesterday as well, Pat. People in London's like, really? Awesome. I mean, we get an NFL game. That's great. But Falcons and Jets, I mean, it really doesn't get any worse than that.
I saw they might be expanding to Germany next year. I might go to that, see if I can get DraftKings to send me over to Germany. I had a really good time the last time I was in Germany. I really like Germany, going to visit, so it'd be nice to go see a football game over there. And I'm sure that they can somehow sneak me in the building. I can do the show live from there or something. Well, I'm still working on Waste Management Open. Germany will be after that to figure that out.
Yeah, Waste Management Open is a fantastic time. I got to go back. It was one of the top moments, sports moments I think I've ever been to. But yeah, Germany would be fantastic. I've never been overseas, but I mean, it's worth it, right? I mean, not only to catch a football game, but you can catch I guess a real football game is what Europeans call it. And then you can travel, right? You can bump around. I got friends over there that just hop on a little bus and they're in France in 45 minutes, and then they go to Germany and Holland. It's like, man, must be nice. Like, yeah, put that on your list. Do a show from there.
Yeah, I'll probably pass on the real football. I'll just watch the NFL game.
No, come on.
And then I'll take a train through the Alps and go to Austria or something like that. Visit Prague. Who knows? Anyway, Bills Cardinals Super Bowl. Are you ready for it?
Man, we may get it. Heading into yesterday, there was, I think, 4 teams since 1970 that had at least 30 points and 400 yards. It was like the Broncos and Peyton Manning in 2013, and then Brady and the Pats in 2007, and then Rich Gannon and the Raiders in 2002 to start the first 4 weeks of 30 points and 400 plus yards. All those 3 teams went to the Super Bowl and lost. And Zona didn't get to that threshold, that 30 plus points and 400 yards yesterday, but they're in that grouping. I don't know if they get to the Super Bowl and lose, but man, the Bills, a statement game for them yesterday. I wasn't surprised, man. Like, this isn't like pat myself on the back. This is just like the Bills are for real. They're legit. And if you've been watching the Chiefs over the past couple of weeks, like, not only had they made mistakes on offense and it's kind of cost them some games defensively, they're pathetic. They're awful. 2 weeks ago, they played the Eagles and Philly didn't punt once. Like, they moved the ball easily. And I was like thinking, man, the Bills are going to do the exact same thing, but finish inside the red zone and score touchdowns. And that's exactly what they did. So KC, I don't know what it is. I think they're fine offensively. I mean, we'll see what happens with CEH, but defensively, they're the worst team. And they may be the worst team, but the metrics say that they are. I mean, they're dead last in rush and pass DVOA heading into yesterday. What, they've allowed at least 29 points in every game. And now it's going to go through Buffalo or LA. I mean, Buffalo is, I think, the home field advantage would be more significant for them, but the Chiefs are going to have to do this on the road.
I don't think that they're too concerned about that. I mean, I have a pet conspiracy theory that the Chiefs are just letting all these teams win just to build their confidence for when they inevitably steamroll them in the playoffs. But we'll see. And I don't think that the Chiefs, although it hasn't been going well for them so far this season, they've had to have played, them and Minnesota, I suppose, have probably played the hardest schedules so far when you just look at the quality of opponent, because Dallas is much better than I thought that they were going to be. I mean, that's more for the Chargers, but it's just like you get all these teams, like the Browns, obviously a good team, the Bills, obviously a good team. Philly is who the hell knows with Philly? They squeak out a win in a game that they didn't do anything in. Jalen Hurts doesn't do anything in the game and scores 25 fantasy points because he's legit maybe the best fantasy quarterback ever for a guy who's like not good.
I know he still makes some throws, but it's like he underthrows guys. I mean, he did it again yesterday. And part of it is the play calling. I don't understand the play calling at all. Even yesterday with like his ADOT is among one of the fewest in the league in the NFL, but yet he does take those deep shots. But when he does, they seem to be underthrown. But there was a lot of just lateral plays, throws behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage. And I think that he had fewer than 100 yards of offense heading into the final quarter. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, one play to Quez Watkins, and then you're in the red zone and away you go. Yeah, I don't understand Philly either. That was one of the games that I certainly had wrong yesterday. I thought Carolina, I was thinking it was a trap. I was looking at that one and I was looking at the Packers. I was like, how are these teams just favored by 2.5 and 3? Like, shouldn't they find a way to win? But Carolina didn't do anything on offense either. Like, Sam Darnold looked like the old Sam Darnold. He made brutal throws. Credit to the Eagles, got some pressure on him, but neither team did anything offensively. But that was a surprise because even though Carolina was struggling on offense, I still thought that they were going to be able to close out that game, and all of a sudden they're losing for the first time with a couple minutes left.
I think that they'll be better with McCaffrey likely to come back this week. Sure. That all of a sudden that dynamic on the offense is a little bit better. Maybe they get the offensive line back a little bit healthy too. I think the saving grace for the Chiefs right now is that the Broncos and Raiders are a lot worse than maybe they look through 3 weeks, that they kind of beat up on some cupcake teams. I mean, the Raiders, they pull one out. I mean, the Steelers are not good. We've kind of seen that. No. So, they end up beating them in the week when Pittsburgh had like half their defense out as well. So there's an upset. They beat Baltimore at home in a Monday night game that goes to overtime. Just weird stuff happened that entire time. They've kind of settled back into where they're going to be. They're probably maybe slightly above, around, or slightly below 500. Denver kind of seems to be the same way too. Maybe when Jerry Jeudy comes back, which could be pretty soon, that maybe they'll get their offense back on track. And, they had a chance to at least tie that game early or late, very, very late when they finally started making their push. And then Teddy threw the pick in the end zone. And, they were down by 8. They still would have needed the 2 anyway. But if those two teams aren't going to challenge with the Chargers for the AFC West, like the Chiefs can just kind of tread water, beat the crap out of those teams in the 4 games that they play, and they'll be in the playoffs no problem. So I don't think that they're sweating it too much.
Yeah, they're probably not, but at the same time, they need to string together some wins. But I'm looking at the schedule, you're right, it does get a little softer for them. I mean, they've played 3 really solid teams in Baltimore, the Chargers and the Bills, and, they just happened to lose those games. They did beat Cleveland in week 1, but yeah, you got Washington, Tennessee, and the Giants. So those are 3 wins. Green Bay will be tougher for them. That's going to be a game that they're going to need to have, though. And then in Las Vegas, the team that they lost to last season and almost lost to twice, I would give them the benefit of the doubt to win that game. And then the Cowboys, that'll be an interesting one. Week 11 at home against Dallas before their bye. Then they wrap up pretty soft as well. Denver, Las Vegas, they'll have the Chargers again, Pittsburgh, Cincy, and Denver. So I'm not concerned overall that they're going to be a playoff team, but if I'm ranking, and I'm not trying to over exaggerate, like the Bills and the Chargers are certainly ahead of them because they can play defense. Like they have defensive players that are playing really strong. You can run all over KC, and clearly you can throw all over them too.
It's true, but they have an awful lot of time to figure this stuff out. And
they do.
When it boils down to it, give me Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, but it's sort of like a malaise right now. It feels like once they figure out, and maybe they will not figure out, any sort of defensive scheme that will work for them, if they can just patch it together a little bit, maybe start a little bit hotter in some of these games, then some of the problems are solved. It's all about staying healthy. I don't think that the Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury is that big of a deal to them. Tyreek and Kelsey injuries might be a bit more problematic. So we'll see how those guys shape up because they both ended up on the injury report. Anything else straight from the games before we jump into the waiver wire?
No, I don't think so. It is weird to see the Chiefs start so slow. It feels like 15 of their last 17 games, they've been playing from behind. Like, don't you think every single week it's like, oh, wow, this team has to come from behind again. And most times they do. Even looking last night, I was thinking, even though I was on the Bills, it's like they're down. They're making that drive last night with, I think Kelsey had a big catch to extend the drive, and then they find a way to get a touchdown, and they're down 11 points or something like that. And I feel like they still had no business winning the game. And I just checked to see what the odds are. Like, maybe I'll live bet this, and they're basically favored. I'm like, wait, what? The respect that Vegas gives this team is wild because they've covered, I think, 3 of their last 16 games dating back to November 1st. But yeah, we'll see. It's certainly going to make for a fun fantasy environment on either side, right? You're going to feel better about opposing players going up against them, and you're always going to start the Chiefs studs.
Waiver wire running backs. Once again, you can find the full list up on dknation.com. I'll link that down in the description once the article is published for the video, for the podcast. If it's not out in time, then it's not getting linked because once the podcast is out, you can't really change the description. So dknation.com if you're looking for it. I'll tweet it out as well. And the newsletter where I have this full injury report. It's just a list, just like the running back snap share list in the game notes. That's available down in the description as well. I encourage you to subscribe to that newsletter, just like I encourage you to subscribe to Mayo Media Network. Here's what I got for injuries at the running back position. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who we just talked about, exited the game. Saquon Barkley, man, his ankle looked brutal. He's week to week. I would expect him to miss at least 1 week, probably more. I was consulting with my buddy, Dr. Jesse Morse, on this one. He's like, I'd be shocked if it wasn't at least 2 weeks. And we'll see once the actual MRI ends up coming out. Damian Harris left that game twice with a chest injury, came back the first time, then had to leave again. Positive news about him, at least from what Stevenson said after the game, that maybe he'll end up being back. We'll talk about that situation in a sec. McCaffrey should return this week after missing the week, same as Dalvin Cook. Chris Carson, we do not know yet with his neck injury. He could be put on IR. He could play next week for all we know. Justin Jackson missed week 5 and Rex Burkhead missed week 5. No one really cares about those two guys. So at the running back position, top 5 in terms of running back pickups, Latavius Murray still only owned like 40% of leagues for whatever reason. He's the number 1 pickup. Just pick up Latavius Murray. Devontae Booker is number 2. Darrell Williams is number 3. Obviously, this could change if we learn more about the Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury. I think he's going to be out for a bit. Who knows? Khalil Herbert At number 4, with David Montgomery on IR and him out snapping and out touching Damian Williams, although he didn't score the touchdown. AJ Dillon at 5. Then he got like Brandon Bolden, Jarek McKinnon, Jeremy McNichols, Sony Michel, Samaje Perine at number 10. I suppose if you need a running back to start, I mean, even Latavius Murray, you're going to start Latavius Murray regardless at this point until the Ravens throw another monkey wrench into it. For the next 2 weeks, though, or at least the next week, Booker will be the better play. It's just 3 weeks from now, he could be useless again.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It could be like Chuba Hubbard. Maybe you got one more week out of him and he looked okay yesterday against the Eagles, and then CMC comes back. But who knows, man, with Saquon, I like I said, I thought it was a bit of a freak injury. Like the play had already happened and he was like looking back and walking and basically rolled his ankle on another guy's foot. But this could be, I mean, like your guy, like Dr. Jesse says, I mean, this could be a week-to-week thing. It could be a 3 to 4 week thing. So you could have Booker for a couple weeks. Now the Giants are good, but Booker's been into a role before, Pat, where he has acted like a bell cow back in Denver. He put together a couple decent seasons. I know 1 year in Denver, he had like 5.4 yards per attempt. He had 30 plus catches. Actually taking a look now, he's got 3 seasons with 30 plus catches, like 51 targets, 38 grabs. Like he may not be a really good back, but you know that he's probably going to touch the ball at least 17 times. Like if he's playing the next 2 to 3 weeks without Saquon, he'll probably finish inside the top 10 over the next 2 to 3 weeks in overall opportunities. That's just like attempts and targets. So yeah, maybe more than a week play. It could be 2-3 week thing.
If it is, then he probably becomes the number 1 pickup. We just don't know the extent of Barkley's injury. I'm just going to guesstimate that it's 2 weeks for the moment. And you have Gary Brightwell, the rookie, who could eat into his time. Like from the snap shares yesterday, Booker actually played the highest percent of snaps of any running back in the league. It was 88%. Kamara was 87%. Then it was Derrick Henry at 77%, Miles Sanders at 75%, and DeAndre Swift at 73%. The full list, again, available in the link in the description inside the Mayo Media newsletter. Sub to that right now, or just go check out the list if you want to. But there's a chance that he gets split up by Brightwell, or they sign someone to bring in. Like Wayne Gallman's not really doing much in Atlanta. Maybe they end up cutting him. He goes back to the Giants. Like there is a path here where he's not getting 98% of the Giants touches. And that's what you would want him to be doing. Like he is a pure volume play only. And with Murray, to think about it, I mean, we don't know what happens in the Monday night game. Yeah, maybe he gets hurt. Maybe Tyson Williams is all of a sudden like back. Maybe they use Le'Veon Bell. But it just seems like when they're inside the 5-yard line, Latavius is getting the ball for the Ravens. And that doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon.
No, he's the guy. Like he's the number 1 guy. I'm surprised to hear that ownership. Yeah, I've liked what I've seen from him since day one, right away. When he was pulled in week 1 he was basically with the team for like a day or two. And he was getting a lot of important touches inside the red zone. He had back-to-back red zone opportunities where in week to week that he converted for touchdowns. Tyson had a couple fumbles and really like lucky that they didn't go the wrong way. One went out of bounds, one was recovered inside the red zone, and they just didn't seem like they trusted him to pass protect and to block for Lamar Jackson. And he was inactive last week. I don't know if he'll even be active again this week. So Latavius, I think, what did he have? Like 18 carries last week? He was fine. He didn't get any targets. I'd like to see him catch a couple balls. Certainly he can, but it seemed like they were using Bell in that way. And it was just a very small, limited role for Lev Bell, but he was running more routes than him and playing more third down. So we'll see what the case will be tonight. I don't expect them to play from behind against the Colts. So it could be Latavius racking up another 18 or 20 attempts. And then before I came on, I don't know, Schefter said that Baltimore's getting a ton of calls on all their running backs. So I don't think they're going to trade anybody, but maybe Tyson is a guy that they flip and they would open up things more. But I don't think Tyson even is going to be active tonight. I'm just purely speculating, but yeah, you can feel good about Latavius.
So you have to watch out for Baltimore because Cuss free money teaser hinges on Baltimore covering the -1 when he ended up teasing them down. So expect a Colts victory in this game if the history of the Ender curse goes well. Darrell Williams, Khalil Herbert, AJ Dillon, Brandon Bolden, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know the extent of Damian Harris's injury. It really doesn't seem like they want to use Stevenson at all. JJ Taylor's in the doghouse. Like Bolden continues to play. He doesn't do anything. But if Harris is out, maybe he ends up becoming the path. I would just prefer to exercise myself from that entire situation, just not have to worry about it. Do you think this Khalil Herbert guy ends up getting more run than Damian Williams moving forward?
You know what? He may. I watched that game pretty closely because I had a lot of Damian Williams and a Herbert in one deeper format where I was unable to get Williams. And you know what? He looked pretty good. He looked really good. He he deserved all the play that he got. You talked about him not getting in the end zone, and he marched them up the field the entire way. And it looked like they were going to run a play with him inside. I think it was like at the 5. And I believe Las Vegas called a timeout. And then when they came back on the field, it was Damian Williams in there. And then he had the spin move and he found the end zone. I think it is just going to be like a 50-50 split. I think people that are ranking Damian Williams, like myself, as like a high-end RB2, I had him right around that RB 14, 15 mark. I think, this week I won't have him that way because, like I said, I mean, Herbert, he hung in there. There was another play where it looked like Fields is absolutely going to get rocked, and he picked up the blitz. So that's huge, especially for a young player to be able to do that. But I think if I am projecting, I give the slight edge to Damian as the veteran back that maybe they will throw in there in the red zone. But man, this is really close to a 50-50 split. And I think that it's going to be like that until we see David Montgomery come back. And who knows, there's some reports out of Chicago that he may not even come back this year. So Herbert should certainly be a pickup.
Yeah, he's not the priority pickup if you need someone, if you have the bench room. Like, would you pick up Khalil Herbert or Darrell Williams right now? Just not knowing the extent of the Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury.
I would pick up Herbert. I know that Chicago wants to run.
They do.
I don't know. KC's just going to sling it. KC's just going to throw because like we talked about, the defense is trash. So I would pick up Herbert, knowing that it's certainly a multiple, at least another 3 weeks for Dave Montgomery. So I think it's probably short term, but I think you're going to get more touches. You get more opportunity from him.
Well, would you then prioritize Jarek over Darrell Williams if you think that he is going to be the pass catching back? Like, looking at the routes run from the Sunday night game, and Jarek didn't really do anything until Clyde Edwards-Helaire got hurt. 24 routes for Darrell Williams, 22 routes for Jarek. Maybe he's the answer.
Yeah, maybe he is. Yeah, I mean, because they're going to be playing from behind. Although we just looked at that schedule, so just thinking about it a little bit more now. We looked at that schedule; it is pretty soft. So maybe Williams gets a little bit more run than Jerick McKinnon. It does seem like that's all they want to use McKinnon though in the pass catching role. I don't know if he'll ever get red zone opportunities or touches. Williams, even last week against the Eagles when CEH looked good, Williams got a lot of run. I was surprised with how much play he got in what was a very competitive game. A lot of red zone usage. So maybe I'll lean Williams there over McKinnon. But in a full point PPR league, you're definitely talking about it's a conversation.
3 other guys just of note down the list. I have Jeremy McNichols at number 8. He's probably the top handcuff now that Devontae Booker is thrust into a starting role. He's being used anyway on the Titans. I don't know if he'd hold up to like 32 carries like Derrick Henry gets, but he'd probably get like 25 touches if Derrick Henry somehow went down with an injury. So there's potential upside there. Jared Patterson in Washington. Obviously, Antonio Gibson's dealing with this shin injury. It doesn't seem to be affecting him, but should anything happen, I wouldn't expect J.D. McKissick to take over the Gibson role. I would expect it to be Jared Patterson. And then Devine Ozigbo, he's back, and he has somehow replaced Dwayne Washington as the primary backup to Alvin Kamara. He was the one touching the ball when Kamara wasn't with Tony Jones's injury. So just as a very, very, very deep stash, like 16, 18 team league. You don't need to pick him up in like any real leagues, but he could potentially be the next man up while Tony Jones is out, should anything happen to Alvin Kamara. Wide receivers for the pickups. Actually, we'll do injuries first. And again, the full injury list available in the description. Just hit the link to the newsletter and boom, you got it all. Tyreek Hill hurt his knee in the Sunday night game. No idea how serious that is. We'll hear more on that during the week. Kenny Golladay left the Giants game. That is not expected to be serious. He should play this week. Curtis Samuel exited the game for Washington. I mean, he came into the game with a shoulder injury, and he then re-aggravated his groin, which put him on IR to begin the season. I don't know if he's going to play again this year, which is just go get yourself healthy, Curtis Samuel, and come back to us next year. So I've dropped him from any pickups list. You can feel free to drop him. Juju might be done for the season with his shoulder injury. They're talking about placing him on IR already and that he might not come back. Deontay Harris exited the Saints game with a hamstring injury. However, they go on bye this week, and coming out of the bye, both Traquan and get this, Michael Thomas eligible to return. It sounds like Michael Thomas is coming back, so that could potentially be huge news for anyone who has continued to stash him. I went and looked up his ownership. He's still owned in like 85% of leagues, which stunned me. But I don't know how well he's going to do in the Saints offense, but it's still Michael Thomas. And if he is healthy, you're going to want to play him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna want to play them. I'm interested. Like that's something I'm gonna really have my eye on when they come out of the bye to see what the Saints offense looks like. Is it gonna be very much the same, which has been run heavy? Like nobody is running the ball more. They had the highest run percentage in the league heading into this week, and also just playing at a very, very slow pace. I mean, Alvin Kamara is doing things that he's never done before. I mean, the efficiency is not there, but he's on pace to have his best ever rushing season. He's getting a lot of attempts on the ground. He got some work out of the air, through the air yesterday, which was nice to see after coming off a game with 0 targets for the first time in his NFL career, week 4. But yeah, we'll see. Michael Thomas is there on the field. I would expect Sean Payton to allow Jameis to throw the football a little bit more. We saw a couple deep shots yesterday. One was a Hail Mary. Like the deep ball I thought would be back in the Saints offense. Not that I feel like Michael Thomas is a big deep threat guy, but I think he's a guy you definitely want to play. But I think it could open up things for like a guy like Marcus Callaway now, who doesn't have to face top coverage. So good news for the Saints.
That is true, especially if Callaway can stay ahead of Traquan with Harris out for the at least foreseeable future. Quintez Cephas hurt his shoulder and was carted off for the Lions. That left more room for Khalif Raymond and Amon-Ra St. Brown to go run around on the field. Then you got Kelvin Ridley, Russell Gage, Julio Jones, Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Diami Brown, and James Washington all missed week 5. So the pickup rankings shouldn't be a surprise. I think we all kind of underrated how good Kadarius Toney is. He's good at throwing punches. Yeah. He's good at getting double-digit targets. We'll circle back to Toney here in a second. So it's Toney, Tim Patrick, Hunter Renfrow, 1, 2, 3, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Crowder, who's on bye, Van Jefferson, Rashad Bateman, Darnell Mooney-Thunes, Marquez Callaway, and Christian Kirk. Then you have Rondell Moore, and then you get to like the deeper guys like DeAndre Carter ran a ton of routes and saw some action for Washington. And if Brown's going to be out, Sims is going to be out, and Samuel's going to be out, he's going to be playing him and Hump Daddy. So DeAndre Carter, Chris Conley for the Texans. I don't know how sustainable that is. KJ Osborne, Zach Pascal, Terrace Marshall, all just very, very deep type players. You're not targeting these guys in 12, maybe even 14 team leagues, depending on the depth of the bench. But back to Toney. What's his role once Slayton and Shepard return? Because that could, I mean, we're all excited. Oh man, double-digit targets. He's the Giants essentially, once Barkley went out of the game and Galladay went down, they switched to the Bel Air High offense, like the pass it to Will offense. He was the only guy doing anything.
That's good. I asked the same question to Jake last week after this game, right? He's the big Giants guy. It's all I've heard him say for years is that Shepard can't play outside. Shepard can't play outside. When he comes back, he's going to have to play in the slot. And then Kadarius takes a bit of a back seat. But I don't know. Like, how could you not play this guy? Like, how can you not find ways to get him involved in the offense? He's such a terrific route runner, and he's very explosive after the catch. I mean, to have 22 targets here in 2 games and 16 grabs, like, man, like almost 300 yards. Like, how could you not play him? But I really, truly don't know. He looks like a much better Sterling Shepard. Like, Shepard has been great in the slot. He was a guy that Daniel Jones has thrown the ball to quite a bit, is another guy that finds, kind of wide open spaces, 5 to 10 yards, down the field there in the middle of the field. And it's an easy completion for Jones. I mean, who knows? Is Jones even the quarterback next week? There's a lot of question marks when it comes to this Giants team, but looking ahead at the schedule, I mean, you got the Rams. It's a tough matchup. If he is playing in the slot, Jalen Ramsey's played in the slot all year, and he really hasn't shadowed Carolina, KC, Las Vegas. So there's some decent games coming up and some tougher ones as well on that schedule. He's certainly a pickup. I think that, maybe they have to move the more veteran, experienced wide receiver on the outside, Shepard, like Laviska. Laviska had played in the slot all year. He had a very small A dot. DJ Chark left last week, and they did some things with him. But yesterday, they just played him on the outside, and he wasn't really targeted at all. So if Kadarius Toney's a guy that's just going to move on the outside, it's going to be a position that's going to be very new and unfamiliar with him. So, you could temper expectations, but I'm looking ahead at this Giants team. I don't believe in Kenny Golladay. Shepard has always been hurt. So Kadarius Toney, I like the outlook for him the rest of the way is if he's healthy, and even if Shepard and Golladay are on the field, I think it's a guy like Slayton who takes a step back. Like you got to find a way to get this guy the ball, because man, you saw it yesterday. He's pretty good.
You brought up the key name was the question that I wanted to ask you, is that maybe it's not even really a question. It's more of a statement for me. There are a few things in this world, as it pertains to fantasy football, that make me happier than Laviska Shenault being absolute trash. I love it.
Because what is it? Just because everyone loves him so much?
Yeah, I never,
not really doing anything.
Yeah, I never understood it. And it's just like, oh man, he's so good. They're gonna get him. He's not that good. I'm sorry. Maybe he like in 7 years' time he can be Cordero Patterson somewhere, but it is not on this Jags team.
No, and yesterday, he had the one catch, and the one catch was explosive. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I had the over on his receiving yard prop. I feel like I lucked out there. I got it by 1 yard, but the dude wasn't involved at all. And sometimes you see this with, young wide receivers who have a role inside the slot, like you just talked about with this situation in New York. And then you move on the outside and, you just can't handle top coverage. We saw it with Juju a couple years ago. Like, remember how good Juju was with Antonio Brown? Now, he had a lot of soft coverage, but he was in the slot and he was awesome. And then Antonio Brown left and he had to go on the outside and he faced top coverage and he was brutal. Like, he was pathetic. And he hasn't been good ever since, I don't think. So, yeah, Laviska. Man, I went into some head-to-heads. I play a lot of cash. I'm kind of boring. I went into some head-to-heads and some 50-50, some double-ups. And people were rocking Laviska. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. We're really expecting big things. But the Jags have kind of turned into a run-heavy team over the past couple of weeks. Like James Robinson. Finally starting to realize to give the ball to James Robinson unless, you're 4th and 4 or whatever, 4th and goal, and they decide to throw in Carlos Hyde. That was fucking unbelievable. But James Robinson is at least getting a lot of touches and they're running the ball a bit more.
Oh yeah.
Urban Meyer. Like, how is Urban Meyer still have a job, Pat? Like, how is this guy honestly still have a job?
I mean, the off the field stuff being one thing, that's probably dismissal anyway, but it's the
on
the field stuff that should be getting him fired. I mean, there's one thing the Jags enjoy to do. It's being down by 20 and establishing the run with James Robinson. Good for James Robinson owners, not great for the prospects of the Jags actually winning games at this point. So, I mean, keep playing James Robinson. He seems to be pretty good. My guy, Tarzan Dan Arnold, just keep rocking him out there. I bet a bunch on Delvin Cook unders everywhere, just praying he would be active because they kept hanging numbers out there, and all he had to do was be activated, and I just cash in, essentially. And then he was deemed inactive at the last second, so all I did was basically take all that money and I bet on Ricky Seals-Jones overs, Dan Arnold overs, and then parlayed them together, and they all hit within the first half. It was just like, this is the best day ever.
Good call. That's super smart by you. I'm not surprised. You take these low-end guys that nobody's really thinking about. You see their catch props sometimes, like 1.5, like Zach Ertz was 1.5 yesterday. Unfortunately, he had a drop. Khalif Raymond is a guy that I've been going to at like 2.5 at plus money. These guys that are just, I mean, it's easy to say, oh, Tyreek Hill at 6.5 or Justin Jefferson 7.5, Devontae Adams 7.5, but you could really, I mean, if you go dig and you can find some value. I'm glad you brought up Dan Arnold because maybe we can talk about him more with tight ends.
Oh, we will.
It's very clear. It's very clear though that the Jags, whoever the tight end is in this offense, is going to be involved. I think Manhurt's got a touchdown week 1. James O'Shaughnessy had like a career day in week 1. I know it was the Texans, but even Dan Arnold 2 weeks ago, Pat, was traded there and was there for like a minute. Didn't even really practice the team. I think he was like 2 days with the squad, limited role. But man, when he was on the field, they threw to him. And yesterday they clearly threw to him.
They did. And now he gets Miami and London this week. Miami sucks against the middle of the field. Didn't really pan out for Cameron Brate or OJ Howard, but just look where Brady was throwing the ball. It was either inside the seams or slightly outside the seams or just chucking it up to Evans, who they had no answer for. But that's where Miami has just been getting obliterated all year. Looking at the routes run for the Jags yesterday, Marvin Jones led everyone with 66 snaps, although he didn't do anything, ran 33 routes. Chenault was 52 and 23. Dan Arnold was 52 and 30 routes run. He played the same amount of routes as Chenault, or same amount of snaps, but actually ran more routes by a pretty significant margin. He ran 7 more routes, ended up with 8 targets, the most targeted guy on the team. So I just think that is a spot where you want to go target right now. He's not number 1 in my tight end pickup rankings because I do have one more. We'll get to that in a sec, but I have one more question for you. You mentioned the Saints run the ball a ton. No one is now running the ball more than Chicago. Chicago does not want to throw the ball whatsoever, but they're not running with Justin Fields, which is mind-boggling. And as long as they're within probably 2 scores in these games, they're going to be like the Jags and just continue to run anyway. So what do you do with Allen Robinson besides bench him? Like, do you try to trade for him?
Man.
Do you try to get whatever you can for him? Because I have Allen Robinson in a bunch of leagues, and I'm like, oh man, I can't even play this guy.
I know. I have him in a dynasty league, and I've been floating him out there, and people are just super sour on the outlook of Justin Fields.
I would buy him in dynasty. I think that's a good buy.
Yeah. I'm trying, I finally got a W yesterday in one of my dynasty leagues with like Eckler and Kamara and Godwin. You think my team would be okay with Allen Robinson as like my 3rd wideout. OBJ's on that squad too. I'm frustrated with him, but I don't know what you do with Allen Robinson from a season long. I don't think I want him. Like, I don't think I'm buying. Like, I'm thinking, what should I trade him and just get whatever I can get? The only way I would do that is if you're getting him to be your third or your flex. Like, you have to readjust your rest of the season rankings for Allen Robinson. Really good wide receiver, back-to-back seasons as a top 10 wide receiver at each of the last 2 seasons, catching balls from Trubisky and Nick Foles. You think an upgrade here, whether it was Dalton or Justin Fields, but I see the same thing that you see. They don't trust Fields to throw the football. He's not running, and they just want to run. They just want to run and run. And I don't know. I saw it a little bit more yesterday where Justin Fields threw it to Allen Robinson. Even, there was one point in double coverage where he just trusted him and he threw it up in the air. And Robinson actually made a couple really strong catches that maybe normally he would drop and his day would be even worse. I'm saying no. Like, I was thinking about both of these guys 2 weeks ago, Robert Woods and Allen Robinson. I both wrote them up as buy lows. Now the window is closed on Woods, but Robinson, now I'm just a little sour. I see what you see, man. They're running the football, and I don't know where the upside is in this offense. They're not going to get into too many shootouts. Fields is not going to have too many games where he throws more than 35 times, 30 times. So what's the outlook? Robinson, what we liked over the years is that he was getting targeted, right? He was like, the upside may not seem as high, but he was a guy that you could just pencil in for 8 to 10 targets week in and week out. And that's just not the case anymore. So get him if you want, but he better just be your third or your flex.
Alex Collins, I completely forgot about in the running backs because I assumed he was over 60% owned. He is not over 60% owned right now. So let's just circle back to running backs for a second. Would you pick up, because we don't know how long Chris Carson's going to be out. He could be back next week. He'd be placed on IR with a neck injury. So that's really up in the air at the moment. Alex Collins played, let me try to find it here, 72% of the snaps, with DJ Wiki Dallas coming in at 20% of the snap share for the Seattle Seahawks. So he's clearly the lead guy without Chris Carson around. And there's like, would you go Khalil Herbert, Darrell Williams, or Alex Collins right now? Just a blind pickup.
I think I go Herbert. Collins, and then Williams. Yeah, Collins. I'm just speculating. There's some reports out of Seattle that this could be a significant neck thing for Chris Carson, even though I saw him on the field warming up, like as if he was maybe going to try to play that game on Thursday night. But that could be a thing that could linger. And he was already kind of on the down. I feel like he was declining. Like, he was getting some touches, but he wasn't playing third down. He wasn't getting targeted. I know that was Travis Homer who was getting in there, but he was starting to lose a little bit of the snaps anyways. I don't know, man. I think Seattle could be in a ton of trouble if they shut him down and Russ misses 6 weeks. It just could be like a heavy dose of Collins out of the backfield. Maybe Geno, who looked good. I'll be honest. He looked pretty good, peppering it to DK. Yeah, I mean, overall, I don't love Geno, but one thing I think you could feel good about DK, if you're a DK owner, is that he clearly just, I mean, why wouldn't you? If you're inexperienced and you're just getting in there, where's 14? Where's DK? Like, Lockett's the guy I think I think you're going to see him suffer without Russell Wilson. But to answer your question, I think Collins.
Tight ends right now, Dalton Schultz and Dawson Knox have graduated from they're owned in too many leagues. They can't be on the waiver wires anymore. So tight ends, Travis Kelce's dealing with a stinger. No word on how serious that is yet. It doesn't sound too serious. Max with 2 X's, Williams, got carted off with a knee injury for the Cardinals. George Kittle's on IR. He's out at least 3 weeks, maybe more with this calf injury. Gronk missed the game. Big Al O has been placed on IR, so now I can go another 3 weeks without having to learn his name. Tyler Kroft missed the game for the Jets. I think there's the 2 pickups, then there's everyone else right now. You have Ricky Seals-Jones and Dan Arnold 1 and 2 with Logan Thomas on IR. Ricky Seals-Jones just being used. He had 2 end zone targets as well and just couldn't convert on them. They get the Chiefs this week too, so that's a nice spot. Dan Arnold's just becoming a fixture in this offense. Like, you go trade for a guy and you use him a bunch and Chark's going to be out. Seems like he's going to be the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but he gets tight end eligibility, so that's great. Then I go Conklin, Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, Smelly Dwelly, Pat Firemouth, and then CJ Uzomah. You don't want those guys. You want Ricky Seals-Jones and Dan Arnold.
Yeah, you do. And I've been telling a couple weeks now on my show is Robert Tonyan.
Sucks.
You have Robert Tonyan. Yes. Like, make that switch immediately. You know what his receiving yard prop was yesterday? It was the easiest bet I've ever made. 37.5.
Really?
37.5 for Robert Tonyan, who had only topped 8 yards once this season. He 2 for 8, 3 for 52, 1 for 6, 2 for 8, 1 for 8. I don't know, man. Maybe books are just like, Aaron Rodgers, Robert Tonyan, they'll hook up and he'll have that big game. But it was clear that there was going to be a regression in this offense, not just from Rodgers, but for Tunyon catching. I mean, he had a 3-touchdown game or a 4-touchdown game once last year. His ownership is 68%. Like, make that switch. Don't. That's the one thing I noticed with fantasy. And I said that 2 weeks ago. It's like, well, I drafted Robert Tunyon in the 8th or the 9th. And it's like, you just cut your losses. Like, it's fine. You're still time to move on from this. So Robert Tunyon, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry had a nice solid game. I'd continue to rock him and hold him. Even Evan Ingram. Like, what's the deal with Evan Ingram? Like, what are you getting from him?
I know what the deal is. He's not good, so that's a problem.
Stinks. He's awful. Yeah, these big name guys that you're just hanging on. It's all the tight end position is so weak. It's just all about opportunity and volume. Pat, you rattled off the routes run there from Darren Arnold, Ricky Seals-Jones. Logan Thomas is on IR. He's going to miss a couple weeks. It could be longer. We just talked about Curtis Samuel. Maybe we're just who's going to be the number 2 in this offense, man. It could be Ricky Seals-Jones. And if this guy's going to get 8 or 9 targets, heck, if he's going to give you 6, it's way more than these other guys that are higher owned that are just bigger names wasting away on your roster.
QB and defense streams. I'm going to give you a list. I have these ranked, so these are my rankings. But you tell me your single favorite one of these quarterbacks, and we'll make it quick. Tyler Heineke at home against Kansas City. The Goof, Jared Goff, at home against Cincinnati. Baker Mayfield at home against Arizona. Sam Darnold at home against Minnesota. Justin Fields at home against Green Bay. Then you got Trevor Lawrence and Tua, who is expected back this week, playing each other in London. Who's your favorite of that group?
Probably Sam Darnold. I think a bounce back against the Vikings, right? Yeah. Soft secondary. That's the guy I would go with.
I would go with Heineke just against Kansas City. Why not?
It's close. It was close to me. It was both of those. I think we have both quarterbacks in the League of Leagues. So we'll flip a coin on which one to rock, but they're both very startable. Moving forward, I mean, I think they're better than streamers.
All right, let's see. Defenses. Dallas at New England, Miami against Jacksonville, Indianapolis against Houston, Carolina against Minnesota.
Dallas? Like, Cowboys defense good? Pat? Question mark? I think
it is. I mean, and New England kind of sucks.
What the heck happened in that game? I streamed them. I picked them up, thought it was being all cute, and put Julio on IR last week. It's like, yeah, I'll pick up the Pats against Davis Mills, Belichick and rookie quarterbacks. Mills is going to struggle. And he carved them up. Like, he really did. I mean, that was one of the most surprising takeaways for me in week 5. Not that I thought New England's defense was phenomenal. Like, they were second in pass DVOA, and they hadn't played anyone great. That was the thing. And it's like, but they're still good. They could generate pressure, and Mills is not good. And who's going to catch the ball outside of Cooks? And all these guys were catching passes and bringing it to the house yesterday. It was like crazy. But Dallas is absolutely legit, man. They're going to be a 12 or 13 win team. They're unbelievable on offense. I'm most impressed with them. Like, the Chargers, sure. The Bills, sure. But for me, the Cowboys, what they can do defensively and what they've been doing on offense is very impressive. And their schedule, they've already went through the tough part, really. Their schedule is, they just play the NFC East to wrap up the season.
No, maybe Washington will give them problems with their lack of defense. I had a big swing and a miss on Dallas coming into the year. I just thought they were overhyped. Although I love their offense, I didn't think that their defense would be like remotely. It's not like they have an elite defense, but it's fine. And that's all.
It's good enough.
When you have, I mean, how much would the Chiefs love to have Dallas's defense at this point?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, they would, right? Micah Parsons playing really good. Trayvon Diggs had another pick yesterday. He's just an elite corner. I think teams will maybe stop throwing his way. But yeah, the defense looks, I don't know, Dan Quinn, I guess, like he just, I don't know, gives him a little bit of an identity. I mean, they've drafted some guys, they've kind of gotten it over the past couple of years to draft defensive players, even though Zeke looks pretty good. But yeah, I mean, they look overall as they're a complete team.
Joe Burrow, Daniel Jones, and Taysom Hill all got injured yesterday at quarterback. Burrow was taken to the hospital after the game with a throat contusion. I have no idea what that means or what that means for him. I think he's going to play. I don't know if we see Daniel Jones again for a bit. He got rocked, and then so did Taysom Hill. So, but they're going on bye. Russell Wilson was placed on injured reserve. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. Just very briefly from DraftKings Sportsbook, we have the early spreads. If you're not on DraftKings Sportsbook, use code PME. Get like some sort of super discount for being a first-time player. Things where you like bet $1 and get $150 for free, even if you don't win. So stuff like that if you use code PME when you go deposit at DraftKings Sportsbook. Here's the early line that stuck out to me the most. The Chargers are 3.5-point underdogs in Baltimore next week.
Hammer it. Bet it now.
Yeah.
They're better than Baltimore.
Like,
They're better than Baltimore.
Even if Baltimore runs
legit,
train
too.
on the Colts tonight, like I can't see that line moving all that much.
No, I mean, maybe it could. No, I agree. I was thinking maybe it could get to 4.5 if Baltimore wins by 25 or 30 points here tonight. But I don't even think they do that, especially with Cuss picking them, teasing them down to win by a point. Yeah, Chargers, man. Staley. Oh, I love it. And even watching the game yesterday, there are some. I love when teams go for it on fourth down. I get it, man. He's one of the new. He's just so refreshing as a coach, like to even not to get into analytics here on the show, but just, yeah, I mean, we got a better opportunity here to go for fourth and 2 or 4th and 3. They did that a couple times. Did you see the play in the third quarter when they're down 2 scores? There's still so much time left and they're on their 20 or 22 and they still do it. And to me, it was like, wow, okay, maybe you shouldn't do it here. Your defense is good. You kick it away.
No, man, but I completely disagree. Like, if you know you can get it and you have the play, then do it. Like they had.
Well,
they weren't being stopped.
No, they weren't. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're very confident in what they can do on offense. I mean, I totally get it. I'm here for it, but that's something that you just don't see. You don't see that in a 2-score game to start in the third quarter. If you don't get that, you know that the other team's putting up points, and then you're going to be down 3 scores, but they just don't seem to care. And I like that. They're not playing scared. And on the other side of that, what did you see from Cleveland when they got the ball back? They could have iced that game. They played scared. They actually should have won that football game yesterday.
Well,
like, it's a bad loss by the Browns.
They pulled the genius move of the century, pushing Eckler into the end zone. Like, how are you just not taking knees there? What are you doing?
Yeah, there was that. There was a bogus PI call on that Keenan Allen catch. I think it was Keenan Allen, might have been Mike Williams, where he actually held. They got the benefit of the doubt on that one. But also, just they ran the ball at the end when they could have thrown. It was like 3rd and whatever, and they just ran it up the middle. They said, all right, we'll give the Chargers the ball back, when really they should have let Baker Mayfield throw that football, and they would have that win yesterday. So they played conservative and scared to lose. And at the other side, the Chargers have shown all year that they're not going to play that way, and they're going to put the pedal to the metal. And I don't know if we're just overreacting week to week. Justin Herbert passed Kyler Murray for MVP talk yesterday.
Well, Kyler's an underdog on the road against the Browns this week. The Browns are favored by 2.5 against the Cards. The one that stuck out to me, though, beyond the Chargers, Dallas is only a 4-point favorite in New England next week. That grows. That goes to 6.5, 7 by the end, like by Wednesday, doesn't it?
Yeah, they beat them by a touchdown. And I don't want to overreact too much about what we just saw with Houston, but this past team is not good. Like, they hung in there against Tampa, but it was sloppy weather, and Bill Belichick was on Brady. That's kind of what he does. Like, he's had years and years of seeing what Tom's strengths are. And, he had a good game plan against them, and the team rose up. But last week yesterday, they just got torched, man. Like, Dallas, again, we just talked about them. They're so good offensively, and they're just taking what teams are giving them, whether it's, checking out of runs or checking into runs. They're just playing really good football, and the defense is good. So, yeah, I would bet that as high as 6.5, even on the road. I think they win by a touchdown.
Yeah, so I've just bet both. I actually found Dallas at -3.5 somewhere else. So I'm going to bet the Chargers money line. Why not? Plus 155. Get greedy here. But parlay together, Dallas -3.5, Chargers +3.5 at plus 240. There we go. Plus a 5% bonus just for taking my money. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Let's get in on that right now. So try to get some early money. Now that I have extra money in my account from winning this weekend, I'll make some stupid bets, but that's where I want to go. Monday Night Football, I don't want to step too much on Griff because he has a video breaking down the DraftKings showdown element and the prize picks for Monday Night Football. If you want to get in on the prize picks, use code MMN at first deposit at prizepicks.com. You'll get a deposit match of up to $100. Highly suggest that you do that. Oh, and the NHL show is back. Starting tomorrow. Bets, DraftKings picks, nice. Sub to Mayo Media Network, like I said. Right now at DraftKings Sportsbook, the Ravens are still just favored by 7. 46 is the over-under. I don't have a particular lean in this game. Like, I picked the Colts on the show. I don't feel good about it. It's one of these situations where it was almost like Detroit, who I just blindly picked yesterday. It's like, I see no path to them covering. But I know that no one else sees that, so no one's going to take Detroit. So I'll take Detroit. I feel the same way about Indy.
Yeah, I feel like, 7's a little high. Detroit's been covering, so you got to give them credit. They don't give up, man. Did you see Campbell? Like, I've never seen a coach cry before after an interview. He was in tears talking about the defeat from the loss. But I mean, his team works hard. They've shown it now that they really don't give up and they hang around in games. So keep that in the back of your mind moving forward when you pick spreads with the Lions. But I would agree with you. I'd lean Indy here in my own pool where you pick your own spread. And if you overbet, you don't get the points. So it's just conservative here with a 3-point win. There's a couple props I do like. Latavius Murray, 12.5 rushing attempts. That's over at DK. And then over 50.5 rushing yards as well. I think he tops both here today. I think they run on the Colts here a little bit.
The secondary for the Colts is so banged up. One thing to watch for in that Dallas game too is the injury status of the Patriots offensive line. They were missing 4 starters and Trent Brown went on IR. So it's not going to be at full health, and the pass rush for the Cowboys has been pretty good. And then that's going to build steam throughout the week, 100%. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to feel like I'm in trouble a lot. And you probably want to watch the weather, but I think that's the best number that you're going to get. I like, and Griff kind of agreed, he liked the prize picks over on this one, and I like it at DraftKings Sportsbook, not only because it's playing plus money right now, because the Ravens secondary sucks. Michael Pittman, over 4.5 catches. Like, he's been over that each of the past 3 games. He's the only guy who catches passes on the Colts.
I think he's got like a 60% target share over the last 3 weeks. Yeah, week 1 was a dud game, but I can't remember offhand, but there was back-to-back games where he had 12 targets. Yeah, he's been an absolute beast. He's been the guy inside that offense. You see little spurts from Pascal and Paris Campbell, but those guys are no good. It is it's Michael Pittman. I would expect another probably 8 or 9 targets, air yards and target share. He's been among the leaders the last 3 weeks.
If you were building a DraftKings showdown lineup for tournaments, not cash, and you were just playing for first, how do you think you would build it? Would you go Pittman in the flex? Would you go like Jonathan Taylor in the flex? Because Naheem Hines has the shoulder injury, and we've seen Marlon Mack get a bit more involved. Maybe people would be scared off of Taylor because of that, because you'd have to think like Lamar, overwhelming Ravens is probably going to be the most, is the common build. They're 7-point favorites. That's probably how it should work. But if you're playing showdown, you're playing one lineup, you need to be somewhat unique. Pittman is the captain. Does that work for you?
Yeah, it does work for me because what we just talked about. And if they do roll and they score some points and you got to see them throw from behind, I mean, yeah, I'm looking at it now. 12-8 for 123, 12-6 for 68, 8-6 for 59. That's a healthy dose of targets right there. It's 32 targets over the last 3 weeks. So yeah, that'd be the guy, right? You feel like Baltimore gets up in this game. They probably create a couple turnovers from Wentz. Let's be honest. He still looks like the old Wentz. He's throwing picks. He's panicking in the pocket. He probably takes a couple sacks. So if Baltimore does roll in this game, then yeah, you're seeing a few targets, probably double digits again from Michael Pittman. That would be the way, I suppose, to get any unique. I'm trying to think another Colts guy, like maybe Taylor, if Naheem Hines isn't there. But I think Hines is good to go. Like, he would be another one that I would consider, I suppose, Naheem Hines, because if I am painting that script, that game picture, I am feeling like the Colts are kind of playing from behind in the fourth quarter and throwing the football a little bit more than what they want to.
All right, you want to answer someone's life advice question? I picked one tailored to both of us because we've been through this exact thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So once again, if you have a life advice question, we're going to try to make this a segment on Mondays. The Pat Mayo Experience at gmail.com. This question comes from Jack Kirkby from Ireland, who says, "Hi, Pat. I'll be moving to Canada in around 6 weeks from Ireland. My current plan is to move to Toronto as I already have a job sorted there. Just wondering, what do you think about the city in general? And if you think there's other cities I should try. For reference, I'm 25, very sociable, love the show, been watching since the Pat Mayo Hour." So that means you've been watching since you were like 16, 17. So thank you for still being a fan. I wouldn't be after all this time. But it's funny that he's 25 and thinking about moving to Toronto. I believe that you and I both moved. I moved when I was 24 to Toronto, and I think you were 25, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah, I was. I worked in radio for a bit after I took a radio and television program in Nova Scotia, I think in 2004, couldn't find any work, went out west for a bit. And then a radio station launched in my hometown. I did that for a couple of years. And then I was like, I got to get into sports. I need sports. They took away my sports and my little mini news and sportscast. They just took it away from me one day because I talked too much sports. And I said, screw this. I'm going to Toronto. And yeah, I moved there at 24, 25. It was kind of a little overwhelming, but I loved my time there. And, you kind of just have to get familiar with the city, but you and I are familiar with the areas to live and where not to live. So I think we can help this guy out a bit.
Yeah, I would say that if you're from another country and you're moving to Canada, I mean, you basically have 3 choices. Like, I live in Halifax. I love Halifax. It's the closest to Ireland, I guess, besides St. John's. Fun town. It's a city. It has like 450,000 people and it has a great downtown scene. And far less COVID here than basically anywhere else in North America, so that helps at the same time. But I think if I was young and like when I lived in Toronto, I had no money either, and I still was able to have a good time and still able to go out. There's just, it's like moving. I mean, it's Canada's version of New York. It's Canada's version of London. It's Canada's version of Paris, Berlin, wherever it is that you want to go. It's a major world city, and you'll want to live downtown. And I like Toronto a lot. I mean, I moved because I'm married with 2 kids now. I couldn't live in a 900 square foot condo with a wife and 2 kids anymore. It was just I had to go buy a house somewhere. That's the same reason that you ended up moving too. Like you moved back just so you could have more space, but we're in our mid 30s now. Like that's where I wanted to be when I was in my mid 20s. There's still like everything's open there, but there's like, in Canada, I at least think in Toronto, there's like the vaccine passport, but it seems like things are becoming more sociable once again there. I think that would be the move. It's just, you're going to pay a ton in rent. It's one of the most expensive cities on earth. So if you can find a place, maybe even split it with a roommate. Like I had roommates for ages. You ended up getting a good deal from our old friend on your place, but I would highly recommend Toronto. I had a lot of fun. I loved living in Toronto.
Me too. I miss it here. I mean, it's nice to be home and have the space and to have a own room here to do this show instead of in a tiny little bedroom. But yeah, I love my experience, love my time. I highly recommend it for a lot of people that ask me what Toronto's like and if it's worth the opportunity to go there, and not even just to get into the sports world or whatever. I mean, this guy's got a job lined up, but just there's lots of different things to do even outside of the city. There's a lot of different things to kind of take advantage of, whether it's to go to Niagara Falls if you're into, I don't know, you're a wine person, like there's lots of solid wineries around, but there's just like, heck, just walk the city. Like I like doing that as well. Just, the scenic route is great. Down by the water is fantastic. I totally will always cherish my memories in Toronto, and I hope to go back and visit sometime. But yeah, I mean, you are going to pay. You're right. It is very expensive. It's a very expensive city to live, especially downtown. It is, but you could seek out some places. You could find a roommate. You can get into a townhouse. That's how I started. I was in like a townhouse with 4 other people on my own level, but there was 4 levels, and it was pretty cheap, but I had a lot of space. It was just a little bit outside the city, but I mean, the travel it's easy to get around and travel and commute anywhere. Plus there's just so much to do, right? You got all the pubs. If you're into pubs, you come from Ireland, you must be. You're into pubs, outdoor sittings, and then baseball's there, basketball's there, lots of sports, theater. I mean,
yeah,
endless amount of things to do in Toronto.
It has everything besides an NFL team when it comes to sports. Like even the MLS team is. I mean, MLS sucks, but Toronto FC is like a good time to go do. Plus the leagues are there.
Great time.
I would recommend living south of Bloor, but if you can't afford that, live south of Eglinton. Just make sure you're on a subway line. That way that you can get around the city pretty easily. And if you have like, I don't know, $2,800 to $3,000 to spend on rent per month, send me another email back. I actually have a place, my condo. I still own my condo, so you want to rent it out for $3K a month is the going rate, and like that's not exaggeration. That's like what it costs to live. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom as well, but the price of rent. It's always going up in Toronto, and I am directly on probably the best subway line. It goes east, west, and north, south. So if you want to get around the city and your job is good enough and you can afford that, hit me up. Or if you want to rent it with a roommate, someone else, you can do that. Toronto's also good for Vancouver's awesome as well. I lived in Calgary. I fucking hated Calgary. I'm never going back there again. Montreal, you don't have to parler français, but it most certainly helps, which makes Toronto very logical. Like there's direct flights to everywhere in the world at the same time. Like it is the biggest hub out of Canada to go wherever you want. It's less than an hour to fly to Boston. It's less than an hour to fly to Chicago, to New York. Like you are America adjacent in all those ways as well. So I'm kind of envious. I remember how good of a time I had. Like I moved to Toronto when I was 24. I moved to New York when I was 27, then back to Toronto when I was 29, stayed there until I was 36. So, I love Toronto a lot. That's why I kept my place there. Because just in case I ever want to move back someday. But you don't need to be there as much as we needed to be there 10 years ago anymore, because remote working and remote learning and everything like that, like we had to be in Toronto to start our careers because that's where everything was. That is not a thing anymore.
Yeah, it's a good call. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people are just working from home. I mean, even people on ESPN and other major networks are, you see them and they're just in their home setup and doing their reports and live hits and for whatever sport they're covering and from home. So you're right. You don't really need to be there. When we went there, it did feel like you needed to be there. I felt like I needed to be there. I felt like I needed to get away from out East and just getting to like a sports market. And it's like, again, no regrets. I mean, we got into, a company where we did live shows every day and we got an opportunity to, interview athletes and stuff. But, what you were talking about, it just where it's how so central is such a great point to bring up. And that's one of the things that I loved so much about Toronto is that, hey, I mean, you go to Buffalo, it's like a 2-hour drive to go watch the Bills. To Cleveland was a 3-hour drive. Go to Philly, Pittsburgh, 5 hours.
Detroit.
Like, it's so central. Even if you don't want to fly, Detroit, I did all of those things. Heck, you want to go to Montreal for a weekend. I mean, it was a 5-hour drive. Like it's nothing. And you're right there. It's so central to all these other major sporting, even if you're not crazy about sports, you're watching the show, you must be, but also this little things to, experience. You come from Ireland just to really just see what North America is all about. Toronto's like really central and it's in a really good spot to, kind of take advantage of that.
Yeah. And if you're from Europe, the transition to Canada versus the States, probably a bit more comforting, like just going like after living in the States, like it's not a huge shock going from Canada to the US, but there is, and I mean, the cultures are pretty similar to begin with, especially if you're in the Northeast, but kind of like after being in Europe for a bit, like, it's more like Canada than it is the States. So that would be sort of the stepping stone that you'd want to do. But there is something to being in the largest city possible. Like when I was in New York and even when I was in Toronto, and maybe this was something just personal to me, but it felt like the best of the best in any industry came to those locations to really get ahead. That's where all the young people who wanted to break in, who were doing the next big things, like it felt competitive, and I'm a competitive person. And I felt like that really got my juices going too, that I wanted to be the best. And I felt like the people that I was around, that they wanted to be the best too. So I had to be better than them, which is different. Like when you're working from home, like, I don't know, even now, like you can become complacent working from home. You're not working as hard. Like I was putting in like 18-hour days when I was there, which, got me to where I am now. I wouldn't want to do that today. But when you're first starting to break in and trying to like move up the ladder and get noticed and everything like that, like that sense, like the big city feel, like, like when I lived on Queen West, like when Cody and I lived together as roommates, I'd stick my head out the window and be like 3 o'clock in the morning and like stuff was going on the streets. Like there's an energy to that you're just not going to get everywhere that you can get there.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It didn't matter the time of the day, what day it was, what hour it was. There was always something going on and something busy. And I liked that part of it. Yeah. I love, like, again, I'd like to be back out East and it's a little bit calmer and, kind of doing your own thing, but I do miss that up tempo vibe. And yeah, it's a city where everybody is kind of starving. The energy is there and they're aggressive and they're motivated. And, I feel like that's, I like that vibe, right? I like that vibe of everybody's kind of like a go-getter. Man, you're making me miss Toronto. Should move back here a little bit, but we'll go visit.
Your money goes a lot farther here than it does there. Like Toronto's not a city for poor people. Honestly, it's not.
It's really tough. It's tough. And that's why you put in those hours, right? I mean, like you said, when you went there, it was a struggle at first for me. It was an absolute grind. I didn't have a lot of cash, like barely could afford the school that I went to, and, working on the side and doing, schooling and trying to make a little bit of money just to live. Right. So it's definitely a grind, but it's a grind that it's totally worth it if you put in the effort, and I think it'll pay off. But yeah, it's not cheap, and you're right. It just seems to be, like you said, my buddy gave me that good rent for a couple of years. Good dude. And he was like, you got to go. You got to get out of here, or at least give me X amount of more bucks.
Pay me $1,000.
I'm getting ripped off. Yeah. I mean, I think he bought his condo for like 300, and then within 2 years, he could have sold it for like 550, but he hung on to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's never bad holding your money in real estate as it. That's what I'm doing with my place there. Bought a condo, and then it's just worth more so much years later that if I can hold it for another 10 years, who knows? Maybe I can retire for once in my life. Well, you only get to retire once. But that would be nice if I can just put everything in that, and that would be good to go. I mean, you can get by with a lack of finances. I mean, we both did. Like, I had like literally negative money when I moved to New York, when I moved to Toronto, and when I moved to New York, and had to live in Jersey and then commute every single day through the path. But I don't know. It's fun. And you'll find out if it's for you pretty quickly, if it's your vibe or not. If not, I mean, if you're not stuck there, don't stay there. Go somewhere else and figure it out. But I think that you'll enjoy it at least for a short period of time. Probably not, if you start a family, you start having kids, it's tough because to buy a house in Toronto is like over $2 million. Like if it's going to be bigger than 1,000 square feet, and that's not a condo, it's like a house. So you have to kind of factor that in. But if you get roommates, like I lived in a shitty basement, I had roommates, like I still had a great time, and I would recommend doing the same thing. Anyway, Meaney, tell everyone about Mean Streets.
Yeah, Mean Streets, 5 days a week. Not today. The fine people at Anthem are taking the day off with Canadian Thanksgiving, which I totally understand. But yeah, Mean Streets usually every day at 12 Eastern. And yeah, we're diving into hockey. We're getting into hockey. All the sports are happening. Love October. You got baseball, that's full swing, playoffs, NFL, of course, week 6 here, NHL, NBA around the corner. So busy times over at Mean Streets, a free show at 12 Eastern every single day.
Yeah, smash the like to this episode and subscribe to Mayo Media Network. Fantasy hockey picks and bets is back on Mayo Media Network starting on Tuesday. DJ Mitchell will have it's going to be less than 15 minutes a day, some bets, some DraftKings picks, and boom, you'll be on your way to keep you updated on the news. Again, hit the description. You can find the waiver wire column, and you can find the snap shares and all the injury reports in cheat sheet form down there. Sub to the email while you're at it as well. I shall return Monday evening with Rick Gaiman. CJ Cup Golf Breakdown. I'll be back with Sealy on Tuesday for the full rankings debate. Hope you had a good week 5. We're on to week 6. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!